Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am talking all about my absolute favorite luxury beauty blushes. So I wanted to talk about my favorite powder blushes today because I just love blush. Blushes are some of my favorite products that companies release just because blush really, to me, it makes the makeup. It can make you look more youthful. It can make you look more fresh. It can just make the makeup look be more complete. It just brings youthfulness. It brings life to your skin. It makes you look younger. So I just feel like blush is just one of my favorites for that reason. I love to play with blushes. I love different shades of blushes. I love different formulas of blushes. So I thought powder was a good place to start because I do have quite a few favorites. And let me know if you want to see my cream favorites and I can do a video on that as well. But blush is just a must-have step in my routine because it makes such a difference in how my skin looks and how my face looks. It just looks so happy and youthful. And I feel like you look friendlier when you wear blush for some reason. But it's one of my favorite steps in my makeup application, which is funny because when I was younger, I used to hate blush because, I don't know, I was weird and I used to love full coverage makeup with like no blush. But now it is like the reverse. I like very natural looking makeup with all the blush. But if you want to see all my favorite powder blushes, just keep watching. So first on my list is probably one of my favorite blushes, and I just noticed that these have recently been coming back into stock. So I'm really, really happy about that, and I'm excited I can be talking about that. These are the Cle De Peau Beauty. This is the powder blush duo. My favorite shade is the shade number 105, which I'm really sorry, but I believe I was calling it Maple Leaf, but I think the actual name is Blown Rose, so my apologies. But this is an absolutely beautiful formula. So obviously the packaging doesn't look that luxurious, and it's because you buy the refill and the case separately. And I just haven't bought the case because I thought they were reformulating these blushes. But they have been coming back into stock. These are available on the Cle De Peau site, and I'm going to link to them. And I highly suggest you try them out if you haven't yet, because this is such a beautiful blush formula. This is the most similar in formula to, I want to say, the Valentino blushes or the Surratt Beauty blushes. Absolutely gorgeous. So we have this beautiful, this kind of like a rosebud shade, I want to say, and then this more peachy color. And they have this beautiful, wow, that was a terrible swatch. They have a beautiful pigmentation. These are super, super creamy. So there's a better swatch of the two of them together. They are incredibly silky. When you apply your finger, when you press your finger into this formula, it honestly feels like a fabric. That is how silky it is. It is incredible. And the formulation of this is so beautiful as well because it starts off like a powder product, but it melds and blends into the skin like a cream. Like, after about 10 minutes after you've worn this, it just becomes one with your skin. It like infuses into your skin and you can't actually detect that you've applied a powder product. It is so gorgeous and the formula is incredibly finely milled. It is so buttery, so smooth. It is so blendable. If you're a beginner, you would love this because it's so easy to work with. Cle De Peau just does such beautiful, luxurious products, and this is just hands down one of my favorite formulas of all time. It is so pretty. It never looks powdery on the skin. It never looks like too much. I like that there's a slight glow, but again, there's no detectable shimmer particles in this sort of formula. It is absolutely beautiful. I'm gonna move on to another blush that's one of my favorites, and this is the Surratt Beauty. This is the Artistique blush. My favorite shade is the shade Le Rosée de Soir. I'm gonna be talking about my favorite shades just because that makes the most sense to me. I'm going to narrow it down like one per blush, and some of these blushes, like in this blush, I have a few different colors, but I'm just going to talk about this specific shade. Obviously, I'm talking about the formula in general. You might gravitate towards a different shade, but this formulation is so beautiful as well. This has a very, very, very finely milled, silky formula. I would say it's similar to the Cle De Peau. The Cle De Peau feels a bit creamier, where this feels more silky, and this has, again, that very similar formulation where you apply it and you get that ease of application of a powder, but once you blend it onto the skin, it just kind of infuses into the skin and it becomes one and it melts into the skin and it looks as if you've applied like a cream product. It is so pretty. Again, this has a very, very subtle glow, but no detectable shimmer particles. It blends onto the skin beautifully. I would say this is probably easier to work with than the Cle De Peau because it's slightly less pigmented. So Surratt uses a slurry method, I believe it's called, where it starts off as a liquid pigment. So the liquid pigment is dried down and it creates this beautiful velvety suede effect. Therefore, you can use these products wet or dry, actually. That's kind of the intention behind it. And this formula, just how it looks on the skin, is so beautiful. This is the most luxurious luxury formula. Even though I know a lot of people have complaints about the packaging, these are meant to be refillable, so you're meant to actually buy a separate palette and place these in. It's supposed to be more sustainable packaging because you're actually putting these into a palette. This is a Japanese formulation, so I feel like whenever you use Japanese-made products, they're just so beautiful. You can tell the quality is there. Just how these look on the skin, just the blurring appearance this sort of blush has. If you're looking for a blush that gives you a beautiful, soft, focused, blurred effect, try these Surratt blushes. They are absolutely gorgeous. Another blush that I absolutely adore and is in my top favorites is the Valentino Blush. And the shade I decided to talk about is the shade number 9. I feel like it's the most neutral and probably everyone will like gravitate more towards number 9. Number 2, I have to say, I feel like number 2 is my favorite, but it's such a punchy color. I feel like a lot of people would be afraid of this. But this is a gorgeous formula as well. So kind of similar to that Cle De Peau blush that I talked about. This has that same kind of texture where it almost feels like it has a creamy quality to it. This feels a bit different. This almost feels like it has a bit of a putty texture, I want to say. That's the most similar I could describe it as. It's not completely putty though. It doesn't feel as creamy or as malleable as a putty, but this definitely does have a creamy quality to it. Therefore, once you apply it onto the skin, again, ease of application of a powder, but blends and melts into the skin like a cream product would. So it looks very skin-like. It looks very natural on the skin. This has a very soft sheen to it, but there are no detectable shimmer particles. Same in this shade right here. It gives you just this beautiful sheen, this beautiful pop of color. Even though this looks scary, honestly, if you just go in with one dab on your brush, it gives you the most gorgeous flush of color. But this one's really beautiful because it is so neutral. This is number 9. I think it's called Poudre. And yeah, I just love everything about this formula, how it looks on the skin. Again, packaging, not my favorite. It's kind of this tacky plastic packaging. It looks like, maybe when you're looking at it, it looks like it would be heavy and luxurious feeling. But no, it feels kind of cheap and lightweight. But besides that, I don't really care because the formula to me is just so good and it excels. It's one of the best out there. If you haven't tried the Valentino blushes, you must because they are so good. Next on my list, I guess this is technically not a luxury brand, but I really needed to talk about it because this has become one of my favorite blushes. This is the Lawless Velvet Blush. This is too good. This is like the perfect plummy pink blush. I'll show it to you. It is my perfect, like my cheeks but better shade. Just look at that flush of color that gives, and it truly gives you a flush of color on the cheeks. I feel like this is the kind of color my cheeks turn when it's really cold outside or when I'm going for a walk, especially in like the winter time. Even though I describe this as a plummy pink, it does have a bit of a warmth to it. I don't know how it's both like cool and warm at the same time, but it is. There is just like a slight bit of warmth to it that keeps it from being like a completely cool tone blush. It's not. It definitely has those more neutral tones or a bit of that warmth and coolness to it. I feel like this shade is such a fantastic, just like romantic shade. For some reason, this shade just reminds me of like romance. There's just something so fresh and youthful and romantic about applying this on your cheeks and then having like a pink lip gloss, like a slightly pink, like a nude leaning pink, you know, a cool toned pink nude on the lips. It just is so fresh and youthful and just there's something really romantic about it. And I just love how this looks. This is a baked formula. It's definitely hard pressed, so when you dip your brush into this product, you're not going to have powder flying everywhere. It is pigmented, but not too pigmented where it's hard to work with. I find this easy to blend. Has a really nice sheen without it being a really shimmery blush, and I just think it's a really gorgeous color and formula, and I feel like it's underrated, and I really love that. Another product that I feel like is underrated is this Givenchy. This is the Prisme Libre blush, the 4-color loose powder blush. My favorite shade is the shade number 2, Taffeta's Rose. And I really like this because this has 4 different quadrants with different tones of pink. And you basically like dump out this powder onto the cap here. And then you have to break up the powder. And then you apply it to the skin, which I know seems like it might be a little finicky to apply your products that way. However, it's not. It only takes about 30 extra seconds, and for me, it's worth that extra effort because the effects that this gives your skin is so gorgeous. Typically, so this shade isn't like a tone that looks super natural on me, So I will typically use like a beige blush underneath. So say I'll go in with the Surratt blush as like a base underneath, and then I'll add just a pop of color just so it actually looks a little bit more natural when you do it that way, because this tone will just blend into your skin a little bit better. So I like to do that. I'll just add this as like a blush topper almost. But the effect this gives the skin, it almost gives you like that cloud skin effect, I think was the name of that trend, where your skin just looks so soft focused. This formula is really beautiful because it truly has that soft focus blurred effect. You guys know I love a blurring product, and this is a blurring formulation. It is just so airy, and it has this beautiful quality to it where this is actually like a powder formula, but it has this sort of creamy quality to it where it blends into your skin like a cream would. It is just so unique, and it's a different formula. It's just different, and I really like this in comparison. Like the Dior Rosy Glow blushes are so popular. They're kind of those vivid pops of colors that the Dior Backstage line has created, and they created that Rosy Glow. It's like that bright pink shade, that baby pink kind of cool tone shade. Those are very chalky, and they reformulated them, and the reformulation, in my opinion, is just not good. This is what Dior tried to do, but is so much better, and it just sits on the skin and looks so much better on the skin. So I would highly recommend this. This formula is just gorgeous. I was so happy when Guerlain released their blushes this year. So they came out with the Guerlain Terracotta blushes. The Guerlain Terracotta bronzer is one of my favorite formulas. It's just a classic formula. It's a very standard powder blush formula. So there's nothing special. It's not like a cream to powder. It's not a baked gelée. It's nothing that's, I guess, unique on the market. This is just a typical powder blush. So you don't need any special brushes to apply this. This isn't going to melt into your skin like a cream would. This is just your classic powder blush formula. But I really like the Guerlain formula because it is very finely milled. You're not going to have any texture on the skin. It's not going to look powdery on the skin because it is a finely milled product. It's easy to blend. These are definitely sheer buildable to, if you build it up, you can get a decent amount of pigmentation, but they're not meant to be a very high pigment formula, which I really like because that just makes them look a little bit more natural on the skin. I would prefer for something to be buildable than extremely pigmented right off the hop. Therefore, it's a little harder to work with. This is in the shade 01 Rose Claire, and I also have the shade Deep Nude, and I do like to have both of them in my collection. This is just a beautiful, this is called Light Pink, the Rose Claire / Light Pink in the shade 01. I do like the light pink better. They came out with a nude shade, but the nude shade is like a warm pink, and I just don't like that on my complexion. This cooler tone pink looks a little bit better on me. It just flatters my skin tone and my hair color a little bit better, and I just think it's beautiful. So I really like this shade in particular, and I just think the formula is really nice. I do want to disclose this has a quite heavy fragrance to it, so if you're someone that's bothered by a fragrance, I would just be aware of that. But beautiful formulation. Next on my list are the Chantecaille blushes. So they're called the cheek shades, and my favorite shade is actually this one here. This is the shade Grace or Turtle, and this formula, I feel like these are very underrated. So it comes in this like pebble packaging. It is quite small. It doesn't feel like the most luxurious thing in the world, but the formula in here is extremely, extremely luxurious. It feels, again, very silky. It feels silky smooth because it's incredibly finely milled. Just gorgeous. So these, again, they're mostly, I would say they lean matte, but it just has like an ever so soft sheen to it where it takes it away from being a completely matte formula. And I think it's because the formulation is so creamy. That might be why. But this is just one of the most beautiful formulas. Again, if you're looking for a blurring blush that kind of blurs your cheeks, especially in the front of your face, this is a great formulation because I find it does just a great job of kind of just subtly blurring the skin. Not like a complete filter, but it just softly diffuses over the skin where it looks blurred. This is a typical powder formula again, so you don't need any special brushes or anything. It's just a powder formula. It gives a decent pigmentation, but it's really easy to work with. It's not too pigmented where it gets away from you and it's hard to work with. The one downfall with these is that they are so fragile. They are so finely milled and delicate that you have to be careful. I would just like place them very delicately. Do not travel with these because they will 100% break. but it's just because the formula of these is so good and it's so finely milled, which is why they're breakable, but just be careful with those. But another fantastic formula. And I needed to talk about the Gucci blushes. This is the Gucci Cheeks and Eye Powder. My favorite shade is the shade 04 Bright Coral. I really like these because, again, we're going to these typical powder formulas. This is just a typical powder formula. It's not going to be a special creamy powder or anything. No, this is just a typical pressed powder formula. It is more on the this shade is more on the sheer side, but they have another shade called Rosy Beige, which definitely has more pigment to it and a bit more sheen, which is interesting because the rest of these lean more on the matte side. So this is called, I think it's called a Luminous Matte. And I would only call it a Luminous Matte because I feel like the formula just is finely milled enough that it feels like a luminous powder, if that makes sense. It's just the formula that makes it more luminous versus it actually having a luminosity to it. No shimmer particles in this. It's probably the most matte formula that I'm talking about. This and the Guerlain are probably the most matte, I would say. So if you're someone that just likes a matte formulation with absolutely no shimmer or no sheen to it at all, I would go with the Gucci or the Guerlain because those are going to be your most matte formulas. And then the Chantecaille is probably next on the list. That just has like a tiny, tiny, tiny bit more of a sheen to it. But this is just beautiful. It blends beautifully. It wears all day long. I don't have problems with longevity with any of these blushes, but I just feel like also the packaging, if you're looking for something that feels luxurious and looks luxurious, the Gucci probably has the best packaging over everything I'm talking about. But yeah, this is just beautiful as well. And then this is another brand I wasn't sure if I should put in this category, but this is the Clinique Cheek Pop in the shade number 14, Heather Pop. And I'm specifically talking about this shade because I have tried some other shades and I don't love them as much, but Heather Pop, wow, 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 wow. This is another gorgeous, kind of romantic shade. You can't even see these. I don't know why I'm swatching them because this formula, this is a baked product as well. And it, like how it looks on the skin is so gorgeous. Yeah, this is a baked product made in Italy, which all the baked gelées are. And because this is a baked gelée, it is hard pressed. So you're going to need a more dense brush. I really like this Ray Morris Deluxe Kabuki. This Clinique blush formula is really awesome as well because, again, it has that very soft blur to it. And this definitely has a bit of a glow to it, but there are no detectable shimmer particles, like I said. This just gives you the most beautiful soft glow. It gives your skin health. I love how this looks because it gives that like really beautiful airbrushed effect. Very similar effect to this Givenchy Prisme Libre where your skin just looks airbrushed and beautiful. I love the effect this gives. This is definitely a popular blush and I feel like it is for a reason. I feel like a lot of people wouldn't like this because they'll be like, they feel like they'll need to build it up so much because it's not ultra pigmented because it is that baked formulation. You are going to need to use a dense brush with a bit of a heavier hand just because of that formula. It's just hard pressed. And because of that though, these really diffuse into the skin and become one with the skin and just make your skin look like it's infused with that color. It looks like that healthy, natural, fresh glow because it melds into the skin. It becomes one with the skin. It just has that kind of powder to cream formula. So, so beautiful. I really, really like this. And then my final blush to mention is the Hermes. This is the Silky Powder Blush. And I really like this formula. I would say this definitely is a matte blush formula. So very, very similar in formulation actually to the Guerlain blush. However, I don't notice a fragrance with this one. So for me, that is something that I really like. But this is silky smooth to the touch, very buttery. I love the formulation of this. Did I say the shade? This is number 54, Rose Nuit, or Nuit. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'll leave it down below. But it's number 54. Silky smooth application. It feels very buttery. This blends like a dream. It lasts all day long. This is probably one of the best longevity blushes that I have. I think the color is beautiful. I do like this little classy hardware. It's really beautiful. It looks like luxurious packaging, I want to say. It is lightweight though. It's not super heavy. However, these are so expensive, especially in Canada. I think they're over $100. And I just don't know if they're worth the price. So I would only suggest getting these if they're on sale just because of how pricey they are. I feel like so many of the other blushes I mentioned perform just as well. This does have a bit of an upper hand in just I guess the formula, how silky smooth it is, and the longevity of it. However, does it outperform these by far? No, it doesn't. And for that, I'm hesitant to say it's completely worth it because I just feel like these are so pricey. So if there is a promo and you can get these on sale, I will of course look for anything, and I will always let you know if I know of a sale. It's just so pricey for what it is. And I think the Hermes, this is the Plain Air, the Healthy Glow Mineral Powder. For me, this is worth the price because of how often I use it. But this is a blush, and I don't tend to like just gravitate towards one blush every single day. And I'm hesitant. So I'll get back to you if that changes, but I just feel like you should pick this up if there is a sale or something like that. For the price, I'm not 100% sure, but I do think it's really beautiful. And like, I have to say, in terms of matte formulas, I do prefer the Hermes over the Gucci. I just think the formula is just a little bit better on this. However, the price tag, it's like, for that much money, is it worth the difference? Probably not. But those are my absolute favorite blushes, my powder blushes. I would love to hear from you. Let me know your favorite powder blushes. If I didn't mention one of your favorites, please let me know because I'd love to try it out. I'm on a blush kick right now. I just love blush because it enlivens the skin. It makes you look healthy and more youthful. To me, if you're someone that wants to look younger with makeup, make sure you're applying blush because it is like the most youthful product in your makeup collection. So definitely suggest blush, and I definitely love blush for that reason. But please let me know your favorites down below. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Like this video if you like it, and I'll see you in my next video.